Hey everybody, how you doing today? So as you know, we here at Catholic Reacts are trying to encourage the broader project of Catholicism for the modern world, namely starting a renaissance in literature, art, and Catholicism. In interest of that, while we are going to be reviewing memes, as we have done before, we're also going to be reviewing art and poetry from time to time, to ensure that a bit of culture is mixed in with our otherwise hilarious antics relating to memes. So, in interest of beginning that project, we have today our first poem review, namely the poem If, by the Victorian poet Rudyard Kipling. I will be talking about Kipling at a later date in a later video relating to Chesterton's thoughts on him and Chesterton's thoughts on poetry more broadly, but that's for a different channel and a different project. Right now, we're going to get into the poem. The basic structure for this is I'm going to read If to you and then provide an examination of the poem and its overall themes at the end to help you guys better understand the purpose and ideal of poetry like this. Alright, so we have the first stanza. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, and watch the things you gave your life for, broken, and stoop down to build them up with worn out tools. If you can make a heap of all your winnings, and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve their turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Alright, so now that we've read the poem, we're going to set about the process of analyzing it. Pardon me, I slip of the tongue. I have collected a series of sections from the poem, which I wish to highlight and talk about more in depth. And we're going to use this as the basis of our broader examination of the poem and its themes. So the first section I have here is, You will be a man, my son. This shows us what the poem is about. The poem is describing what Kipling considers to be the virtues of a true man. That is, the ideal of masculinity, most especially in the Victorian period where he's dealing with. So we can already see, ironically enough, from the last line of the poem, what the entire purpose of the poem is, namely to describe masculinity properly understood. So, for the rest of the section here, we're going to be looking at this line and seeing, does this describe what we think a real and good man should look like? If it does, then the poem is true, and Kipling has conveyed a proper idea. If it doesn't, then we must discard it and amend it. So let's see what some of the actions that Kipling considers masculine are. Oh, and forewarning, I have these slides in a random order because I think it's funny to just have them appear completely out of order. We'll see if you guys think it's funny too. I'm still a jokester, even if I'm talking about poetry. Alright, the next one we got here is to walk with kings nor lose the common touch. Now this one's fairly straightforward. It means you have the ability to go about with kings, to walk with them, to talk with them, to be at the highest levels of the social order you can possibly be at, the highest possible place humanly imaginable, and still keep that common touch. The idea being that if you started out poor and became rich, you remember what it's like to be poor. If you started out moderate and became rich, you remember what it's like to be moderate. Or even if you were born a king, you have the ability to still have that common touch, to have that sense of a common humanity with those that are lower than you on the social and economic spectrum. This to me seems like a fairly solid manly virtue. It is the antithesis of pride, the ability to have an awareness of your role in society and how best you can serve others. And so I think this right here, first one, great example of masculinity. The second line we got coming up here, apparently I can't click with my laser pointer. Sorry for the delay there. The next one we have is the will which says to them, hold on. Now, if you remember, this line came about in the section he was talking about willing your heart and nerve and sinew to go on when there is nothing left in them. Now, what we have here is the idea that one should have the will to force themselves to keep going when it seems like it's all over. This ties in with the other themes he mentioned, the bending down to build again with broken tools, that which has been destroyed. The twisting of the truth you have spoken to make a trap for fools. The twisting of the truth you have spoken by knaves to make a trap for fools. The idea being that there is a certain amount of fundamental suffering and challenge attenuated within life, but that one who has the will to meet the suffering, the destruction of your heart and nerve and sinew, and push on through the suffering in spite of it, is a morally justified person. This, again, I think is a fairly good value for young men. There are so many points, even in our relatively easy age today, where it feels as though it's just impossible to keep going. Like it's time to give up, that projects that you've worked on are just not worth doing, that life itself is not worth living. But what Kipling would say to us is even if your heart and nerve and sinew are gone, you must have the will to them to say, go on. The will to scream out to that last moment for a last gasp of work to be done. And this is a broader theme of the whole poem, that real men have what could be called the classical virtues of Stoicism, namely the ability to, as Kipling put it, meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. The idea being that you must know that for you to live, there will be suffering in life, but that the suffering that exists in life is itself an impostor. It's temporary. And as long as you have the will to carry on through it, or at least the will to give your all while meeting with it, then you'll be virtuous, and you will, as it is, be a man, my son. The next line we got is, speak with crowds and not lose your virtue. Now, this one is referring more to popularity. This is kind of an idea to talk about politicians, most especially in representative governments like the one Kipling lived in. While he lived in a monarchy, they still had the parliament at the time. And so you have within this an acknowledgement that when you're popular, when people listen to what you say, when you have an audience, however small or large, like I do, there's that temptation to lose your virtue, to get a big head, to think of yourself as the arbiter of truth, as this greater being than you are. But real masculinity for Kipling comes both in the ability to speak with crowds, because you must have that skill at oratory and that skill at self-discipline and self-control associated with true masculinity, but it comes also with being able to keep your virtue when you speak with crowds. That, I believe, is a representation of a deep truth about masculinity and a deep truth about one's relationship to pride and humility. This, I think, offers us a very wondrous insight into what it would mean to truly and fully embrace one's manhood. And the final line is the most simple: 60 seconds worth of distance run. There's so much pregnant in this here. This is a very pregnant verse, because 60 seconds worth of distance run, that's subjective. What one can run in 60 seconds is up to the person. But if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then the world shall be yours and everything that's in it. Think about the meaning of that. If you can give all that you can give in the time you have, you will be the king of the world, and you'll be a man. Kipling's whole idea here being that if you can do everything in your power in that moment to become the best version of yourself possible, you will have fulfilled your purpose as a man. I think Kipling rings true in his analysis of masculinity. I think this poem represents a deep moral and ethical truth in the English poetic tradition, and more broadly in our own relationship with our masculinity. Kipling, in sections like this, gives us a model of what it means to fully be human, one that we should aspire to go after, to make of ourselves the best version of ourselves possible, and to give our maximum effort possible. For if someone like Kipling can speak so wonderfully and so truly merely about the project of being a man, a somewhat secular endeavor, how much more fully should we devote ourselves to the service of Jesus Christ? Alright guys, so now that we're done talking about the poem, I'm going to get to the part which I both hate and love the most, namely the begging. We are a small apostolate, we're trying to go professional, and our goal is to start a renaissance in art, literature, and Catholicism. To bring good art and good literature to the people, to create good art and good literature from young Catholic artists, and to create a space in which all of us can come together and be creative together for the service of Jesus Christ. Because that's our aim, We need money. We have affiliate links included below, one for Amazon, one for Tan Books, one for Ignatius Publishing. And if you guys could be so kind as to consider purchasing something from any of those links using our link, it would help us immensely. Any amount that you can give, no matter how small. If you just need to buy something on Amazon already, if you would please prayerfully consider using that link, it would be amazing. Any help you can give us. Because the more money we get, the faster we can grow, and the faster we can come to be the leaders of this renaissance, this revolution that we're hoping to bring to the world, that we want to do with you, our fans. If you give us what we need, we will lead the way. We will do everything in our power to run that 60 seconds worth of distance run, and to try to become people who can change the world. Our aim is to help everyone, but we need your help to do it. I hope you guys will consider donating. Godspeed, and God bless you all, my beloved brothers and sisters in Christ.